Tom Rock here. Today I want to talk about Django. The Django, if you don't know, is a Python framework used to basically build the back end of your application. The Django follows what they call the MVC framework or MVC architecture, which means you have your model, you have your view, and you have your controller. The Django, people do say that there is sort of a learning curve to learn it, but once you learn it, it's pretty powerful. The Django also has its own ORM, which is called an object relational mapper, and use the ORM to basically interact with the database. But it does follow the MVC architecture, which has been around for a long time. Any experienced developer understands that architecture, and it works very, very well. There's sort of a learning curve when you're building your views out, class-based views. It takes a while to kind of understand how to create the class-based views. The functional-based views are a little easier to write. So with the Django, it's made up of a few files. You have the urls.py file, you have the settings file, you have the views.py file, you have the models.py file to deal with your models. And the thing I like about the Django is you have your projects, you create a project, but then that project consists of different apps that have different responsibilities. So you have the overall project, but then you can build out the apps. So you have maybe have an app for authentication, an app for this, and an app for that. So you have your project that's just made up of apps. But the Django is definitely very, very powerful. But you have to know Python. You have to be proficient in Python to understand the Django. But it's a very, very powerful Python-based framework to build out your back end. And there's a huge demand for developers that know how to build out backends with the Django. And another thing with tech stacks, you need to go niche. If you want to pick a tech stack and just become an expert at it. Me personally, I like the Django on the back end and then React on the front end. That's the full tech stack that I'm really, really into, that I'm trying to master. And React, there is sort of a learning curve to learn React and be really good at coding in React, but it's pretty powerful if you're building out applications with React on the front end and Django on the back end. You can build some really nice apps with that tech stack, and that's the one I'm trying to become an expert at right now. But Django is extremely powerful. Sort of a learning curve. A lot of people think there's a learning curve, and there really is. You got to really know your stuff. You have to understand how APIs work. And the thing is, even if you're a back-end engineer, you still need to understand how the front end works. That's why I like full stack, really. Learn full stack, kind of get the big picture. If you understand the big picture, how the front end and the back end work together, and how APIs work for authentication and things like that, if you kind of understand the bigger picture, you know, it's just going to be easier for you. But yes, the Django, very, very powerful framework to build out your back end. And you know, you got to understand Python. You got to be proficient in Python if you're going to understand the Django. And another thing I like about the Django is the docs. The documentation is like second to none. Very, very, very good. It's sort of like the React docs, same thing. But the Django documentation is well written. It's easy. It's kind of easy to understand if you know your stuff. If you understand the Django and the Python programming language, because with the Django, you're dealing with dictionaries and tuples and sets and all sorts of different types of data structures. But it's all fun at the end of the day. But yes, definitely go with the Django if you want to learn. If you want to build out your back end, something I highly suggest. I also like Express.js as well. But let me know your thoughts about the Django. Is there a learning curve? I think there is. Let me know your comments. What are your thoughts? Comment, like, and subscribe. This is Tom Rack, and I will talk to you later.